Welcome back. In our last segment, we spoke with New York Magazine editor Chris Smith about New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio's push, not just for universal pre-K, but how the moving deck chairs in not just Albany, but in New York are all playing out here. Now, his plan to pay for it with a tax increase on top New York City residents, coupled with that the mayor may be softening his position here, that they'd consider a different type of arrangement, or at least reaching out an olive branch to the governor here on the very subject, saying, at an event here they attended with Cuomo, we all got to work together now, and I know we will. What exactly that means? Well, maybe our panel can opine. Joining us tonight is Richard Brodsky. Richard, former New York State Assemblyman, senior fellow at Demos, a professor at NYU, and a contributor to Media at Large. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, that's right, our senior political correspondent. Andrew, you think it's capitulation? He realizes how it's going down. One of the things that the governor said, which I thought was interesting, was at a recent event, he said, you know, I've heard about the Tale of Two Cities. I was sitting in an audience back in '84 when a certain guy addressed a crowd at the Democratic National Convention in San Francisco talking about the two cities and the city of the hill, etc. So I really don't need an education on the subject matter. It seemed, at least, that de Blasio, either doing math or looking at where the calendar is, he's backpedaling a little bit.
Well, I don't really know how many politicians are able to get everything that they want on every aspect of their agenda through with no problems, especially when you need the support of other people to get it through. In the case of pre-K for Bill de Blasio, he knew from the get-go that he was going to need Albany support. He knew he was going to need the governor to sound off on this. I think he was probably establishing an initial position saying this is what I'm going for and trying to figure out a way to get there. But, I mean, did anybody really think that it was either going to be paid for in exactly that way, or there was no gain?
You know why I thought a little bit was because, Richard, he actually got a lot of folks lined up with him. We talked about Senator Klein was one another.
You retreat stuff from him having said every child deserves...
No, you got to put it in the context. The context was the governor said, hey, yeah, I like the idea of universal pre-K, not just for kids in the city, but for kids in Long Island, kids in Rochester, and they started naming other cities.
If he was going to pull back, he wouldn't have pulled back by announcing every child should have pre-K. That's an indisputable goal that everybody shares. This came out of the Assembly pre-K 10 years ago. It's an old discussion. Whether he's maneuvering or not maneuvering, I can guarantee you're not going to find out from a comment he made at a press event at the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus weekend. There's more at stake here than just the merits of pre-K.
How about this? Your old colleagues reportedly said that he came us far too ambitious in his trek up to Albany here, and he was asking for way too much.
Yeah, better he should ask for too much than too little. There's never going to be an easy way to get all this done when you can't make the decisions yourself. He's the mayor of a city. People will hold him accountable, yet he needs other people's permission to do the things he says he wants. It's a very difficult process. The bottom line is we don't know anything yet, except that there's a contest between Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio to be the alpha male on economic policy in the Democratic Party, with Bill de Blasio staking out the left flank, Andrew Cuomo staking out a Paul Ryan right-wing flank on economic stuff. And that's a fight worth watching.
The mistake, Richard, that the new mayor made coming in was that he was believing his press clippings. He should have came in kissing Governor Cuomo's ring if he really wanted universal pre-K paid for with a tax cut. As I've been saying consistently throughout this program, it was never, ever going to happen, and the reason why is Cuomo's running for re-election, and for him to give in on that issue, it would have shown weakness on his part to this new Democrat who's the mayor of New York.
So ring kissing is the way to get you through life?
It would have been a good start.
And you don't mean ring, do you?
I'm glad he used the term. Please don't take him back to that sentence. I was getting worried when he started to say...
With this governor, it would have been the best way to go.
Richard's absolutely right on this. If you kiss his ring, you're not going to get what you want either.
Well, how good is he doing so far?
It's like going
how good is he doing so far?
He's alive and well.
We're going around into this whole
thing. It was dead on arrival. It was dead on arrival. The governor says, I'll give you the universal pre-K, but you're not going to get the tax cut.
Dominic,
it was dead on arrival.
If you're looking for a pay raise, do you go in and say, I would like exactly the amount of money you actually want, or do you start by saying, I would like significantly more than the amount that I would actually like, and then begin the negotiation to get to that point that you actually want?
Who the boss is.
The Cuomo operation
for
pays
different
off
bosses.
on strength. They can like you or they can hate you, but if you're strong, they'll deal with you.
Okay, but one thing
When de Blasio went in
yeah.
strong, it's the only way to do it.
But here's what apparently is coming out, and you're still close to the situation. Everyone says the idea that minimum wage and universal pre-K are two separate conversations is naive. These are all connected together. At the same time, as we all know, that the mayor is going to have a really tough time negotiating multiple union contracts simultaneously.
They're not connected. They're separate. And the reason they're separate is the tax stuff will go into the budget or not. Minimum wage will be a post-budget item. There'll be two separate conversations.
You don't think they're going to negotiate them simultaneously? Say, listen, I'll give you this, but you're
if
going to
I
have...
was Bill de Blasio, I would just hold back on the minimum wage, let the budget pass, and then see what was left of my agenda. This is not the way the system works.
But you know what,
Maybe the
Andrew,
way journalists work.
Right. Okay.
That's
But
not
you
the
know
way
what's
the
interesting
system
is
works.
we have, and I talked with Chris about this in the A-Block a little bit. His point of his piece, I thought was a really good one, was this isn't just about New York City right now, or even Albany. This is about something broader. This is about the idea of two different kinds of Democrats. The triangulation Democrat, which worked really well for Bill Clinton, that's what Andrew Cuomo grew up on. Not his dad's idea of it, which was a lot of concepts, but in terms of actual production, he looked more to what happened under the Clinton years versus the new wave. And it's not just Bill de Blasio. There's other progressive candidates, some even that got elected, like your favorite in Massachusetts, that say, you know, it's enough about trying to be all things to all people. We're going to be more of a progressive party. I don't know if we really see this play out, certainly this year, but certainly in 2016, a lot of people say this is going to be the fight for the soul of the party.
Why don't you just say progractionary and get it over with?
Because I like to do the long-winded
Two
version.
quick points. One, I think we're reading an awful lot into the first 7 weeks of Bill de Blasio's administration as mayor of New York City and trying to extrapolate what this is going to mean for the entire Democratic Party come 2016. That's the first point. The second point is there is a generational difference. Bill Clinton led the Democratic Party out of the wilderness after 12 years out of office nationally through the 1980s and into the early 90s. We're not there now. We've already gone through 6 years of Barack Obama, or 5 plus years of Barack Obama in the White House. There has been something of a change because that change was happening in the last 2 years under George W. Bush. So this is not we need to, co-opt part of the conservative agenda in order for the Democratic Party to succeed. There's a strong desire among the progressive left that the Democratic Party should be a progressive party again.
You were right. Can I say that?
You can,
Okay.
once a night, yeah.
The fight here is a fight over the ideological direction of the Democratic Party on economic issues.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Cuomo cut taxes for the rich, estate taxes and all that, cut government spending, beat up on the unions, and give the corporations what they want. Bill de Blasio, tax the rich, invest in jobs, give working people a raise, and stimulate demand. They can't coexist. This is a fight that will have
It's not about nuance, it's about substance. Two very different ideas.
two different ideologies, two different visions of the way the economy works. I don't know how Andrew Cuomo goes to the Democratic Party in 2016 and says, don't worry, I cut taxes for the rich, cut government spending, beat up on the unions, I'm your guy in 2016.
It, I think, has to do with a certain woman from Chappaqua. I think that will have something to do with it. Now, when we come back, we're going to stay on the subject of New York, but a couple real interesting subjects. One thing we've been talking about forever is, one way or the other, make up your mind, Governor, when it comes to fracking in New York. Are you for it or are you against it? You got even the feds weighing in here with suggestions on what to do. Plus, we'll also be talking about marijuana. Has its time come for New York? And what about the idea about when a job leaves or a company leaves or doesn't grow in New York, is really the state to blame? We'll talk about all those issues right after this.